Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing something real exciting today. I'll show you here real quick. Just walk over. Alright, so we got some brand new exhaust studs and nuts. Got myself one of these big cert kits. Hopefully I won't have to show you how to use that. And then I got one of these, if I can open it. Fancy extractor kit. Hopefully I won't have to show you. And hopefully I won't have to show you this either. Long story short, I got to put a new manifold gasket on the old V10. And some other studs. So yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I'll give you a little listen to on why we're doing that. So give me 1 second. Yeah, it's real bad. Completely gone. Okay, so yeah, you heard that. It's pretty well blown out. Pretty much it completely went out last weekend when I went to camp, and I drove this thing for an hour each way, and on the way up it just completely let go. So I'll tell you in advance, if you are thinking about doing this, plan for a weekend and you want to get all the stuff that I kind of have laid out over here, because you may or may not need it. But I've done this repair in the past, and usually you do gotta drill out studs or extract them in some way. And one time I had one stud that would not come out at all, so I had to completely drill it out and put in one of those big cert kits. So hopefully we won't do that, but won't know until I get started. So I'm just gonna get everything moved in here, and then we'll get right into it. And also, the other tool you might need, a little bit of liquid courage goes a long way sometimes. All right, there it is. I got the vehicle in my shop on my vehicle lift. Got it supported, just be on the safe side. And now I can get started. So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible here. So I'm gonna take off the wheel. That way I have all this room and I can pretty much just sit in there if I need to. I'm gonna remove the inner wheel liner, and then of course I'll open the hood, and then I'm gonna kind of start to assess how I'm gonna attack all this stuff. In the past, I've tried to untwist these nuts off, but sometimes even if you do get a bite, you'll end up snapping them, and my luck, I usually snap them flush with the head, which makes them really hard to get out. But I'm gonna see how that'll go. Maybe I'll just cut the end off on the outside, the outside edge of the manifold. That way I leave like at least a good 1/2 inch of stud there that I can mess with. If I can't break it loose, if I don't have a nut on there, that's good enough. You can see that front one there. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if this was previously messed with or that just rotted away. The key thing I know somebody was in here is someone has put in a bolt. I'm not sure how that's gonna work yet, but we'll find out. So let me get this wheel off, and then we'll start working on getting the inner wheel liner out. Okay, so I got the wheel liner out. It wasn't much to hold it in. There's a screw here, which I actually had to cut because this capture nut, the speed nut, will say it was spinning. So no big deal, just have to get a new speed nut and a bolt for that. You would normally have a piece that comes out here, and then a bolt goes through it and holds the plastic liner to it with another speed nut, but thank you, corrosion, for this case. And then sometimes you'll have them here, there. Wait, I can't even see. There's another one there somewhere. Just a couple here around your fender. Very small. Mine were 5.5mm sockets for the little screws that go in there. And then you'll have these studs for the vacuum box for all your stuff, your 4-wheel drive and whatnot. I actually snapped one of the studs. There's actually another one that must have been gone for a while, but yeah, I only have one stud left, so let's see what I do about that. And then I think there was one more right here, and that was like a 10mm or something. Or no, that was an 8mm. I apologize. So we got that all out, and then after that, I kind of just pushed it in and peeled down the front lip, and then it comes out like that. So now we can get a little bit better of a look, see what's going on. It's originally I was going to try and be nice to these studs. You could see how bad that stud is. That thing is, those things are like, yeah, they're corroded pretty bad. So I did buy new ones for that. So once I get the manifold out, I will have to extract, drill, whatever I gotta do so I can put the new ones in, and then go from there. There's this side. Like I said, that one is missing. That bottom one looks okay. If you're wondering what the gray stuff is, I had a crayon on me, so when I came home, I started smushing it in there because I saw those videos online about using a crayon for stuff like this. But yeah, I don't know about that. But anyways, so that was a random thought I had when I got home one day. So, all right, I got to show a couple of my victories. First, I said I was going to cut these, so I got those done. And if you already see, I got this one. So I don't know if it was just not real tight to begin with, because I didn't, when I broke it loose, it didn't go, you know, bang. It kind of just so this one, I used my induction heater tool that I got from a job, and I heated that a few times, and then I sprayed it with PB Blaster, and you can also see gray on there. So I did use the crayon, and actually I originally used the crayon to try and get this nut off, but it didn't obviously do anything. So it ended up just getting the stud out, which is perfect, but I don't know if anything I did actually really got it loose, or it was just a lucky shot. But anyways, so I'm gonna finish getting that one out, and then I'm gonna work on doing this one here. I actually already broke loose this bolt, so I know this bolt will come out. My plan is to leave this, you know, snugged up. That way it holds even, you know, pressure. That way you're not busting like one end off and it's doing this and pulling it and making it harder for the next one to come out. So I'm gonna leave that in place while I get this one out, and then I'm gonna look at these bottom ones. I don't even know if I'm gonna try. I might just end up cutting the heads off and then going from there. But I'll bring it back once I got more progress. This one here, I just broke loose. I actually, when it's hot, I'm trying something a little different. I've seen guys heat these with a torch or whatever. They get them nice and red and hot and they zip them out. I don't have a torch or anything, so I'm trying the heat induction tool, getting it nice and hot, and then I'm shooting some PB Blaster in there, hoping that heat will pull it up into the threads, because I've had luck like that before, and it seemed to have worked here, because I had to do 2 rounds of just that, and I was just working on it kind of slowly, and you know, I heard it actually did the little, I'll call it the snap, but it was a good snap, you know, it broke loose. And I started bringing it out until my easy out slipped off. So I just got to grab a smaller easy out to throw on that, and then I can get the rest of that one out. Okay, this is my least favorite one. It's right behind the shock tower. Initially, I really debated on taking the shock and the tower off, because it is just 1 bolt here, loosen that bottom one, and then 3 down there. But good news, I got this one loose and it's almost out. I managed to get my little easy out. These are the easy outs I'm using. So unfortunately, they're kind of a pain in a way to use, but you gotta get them on there and then you gotta find a way to hammer it on there, which I was just using this extension and I was right up against here and I was just hammering it from this side and then working it back and forth on the other side as well. And then I had to use this ratchet here and get a socket on that easy out and it cracked loose. Now, to make it a little easier to get out, because I had to keep putting that easy out on here, I have an E-Torx socket. Let me show you that. And that fits over and almost works as an easy out. And it, you know, I don't have to keep resetting the easy out. I can just use this. Makes it a lot easier. So I'm gonna finish getting this one out. And then again, I'll bring it back when I got more progress. All right, I'm gonna try and demonstrate using this while holding the camera. Not much to it, you just plug it in. When you're ready, you hold in this button. So we get this into position where I think I'll get it on the nut. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. I'm around the nut now, so now I'll push the button. And then we'll just wait. It does take a little bit, so you got to be patient. Okay, I'll give it a break. I can see the nut is black now, so it's definitely getting hot. And then I just been hitting it with this. So it's definitely hot. That's what I've been doing. This one actually still has a complete nut, it looks like. The other ones, they looked okay, but as soon as I hit it with a chisel, or I was using something else, but as soon as I hit it, the nut like broke apart. So we'll see if I can use a regular socket on this one. All right, so I got the first bottom one out over there, and I was able to do that actually under the truck and kind of just go up. And then I did heat it once. I didn't hit any PB blaster on it. And then I just got an easy out on it with a socket and got it going. And now you can see my path for the next one, which is this port here. Let's see, but right now I do have it on there and it is coming out. I just gotta work it real slow, but it's coming. I was wondering why this one felt different, but I actually got the nut off. That's weird. Okay, I'm making some progress here. I got a couple studs. So technically I got a total of 6 out already. I left the one bolt that they use for it to hold it in place, like I said. But let me show you what I got now. So I was able to get out these 2 lower ones here underneath. You can see that one, the bolt. That'll come out. I just have it holding it in place. And as I said before, that nut broke. So I'm working on the 2 bottom ones here. I got 1 and then 2 under there. It's getting late, so I'm gonna stop here for tonight, and then I will be back tomorrow. It is the next day. All right, so let's see if I can get past this. Well, this is my peephole so I could see what I was doing. But what I did is I was able to start off by knocking a good bit of the nut off. Actually with this, I fed it up through and I cut a good bit of the beginning part of the stud and some of the nut off. And then now I got my die grinder right there. And I basically worked at the side of the nut, the one side, because once you get through one side, that usually breaks the tension. And as soon as I got through that one side, it actually just kind of spun the nut right off. So that one's done. I got one more to go, and it's like right underneath that flashlight. Okay, let's see if I can jam the phone in here. Got the last one. It actually came right off the stud. I was able to just get one of those extractors on it because there was a good bit of the nut left, and it was enough for it to bite on cleanly without, you know, like shredding it like it's been doing to the other ones. So that actually came out easy, and at this point, I'm gonna take this bolt out and we're ready to pluck it out of here. Okay, about ready to get this thing out of here. Put this here for now. I don't know how easily this thing's gonna come off. I already saw it move. Okay, what's that? All right. Just gonna. I can't remember which ones have the stud. One of these has a stud on it. I don't know. Might be this. Behind the shark toe. Yeah, there we go. Okay, bring you in closer so we can see what's going on. So this one came out, that one came out, that one came out. That's actually a whole stud, it didn't break. I cut that one came out. This is a whole stud as well. Not necessarily a bad thing. That one came out. This one was broken when I bought the truck. And this one actually twisted off, you know, when I was trying to loosen it with an easy out, but you can clearly see where my massive exhaust leak was. It was pretty bad. All right, so I'm gonna take a look at the manifold and then bring it back in. Okay, so the broken stud, I just broke it loose. I used heat, basically, my induction tool. Pretty much if I don't have to get anything else to throw sparks or flames, I'm gonna, you know, not do that. I don't have an acetylene torch, I just have MAP gas torch, but that's what I would use. And then I just got this loose. This stud extractor tool it's great. I've used it in the past when I was doing these on the 5.4s. But yeah, so it's coming out now. Because those have been in there for a minute and they fatigue over time. This one I can tell because it's that copper color. This was a replacement stud. But yep. So after that, yeah, I'm gonna try that other broken one down there, and then I'll think about what I'm gonna do with these two here. This one is where the bolt was, and someone drilled this hole out and tapped it bigger, which is not an issue at all. You can do that. I'm just kind of debating also if I want to just leave it alone and use the bolt because there's nothing wrong with the hole. So it just, I guess it'd be a matter of preference if you want to have studs in here or just have one bolt. I mean, clearly it wasn't leaking, so it did its job. So I'm probably going to leave that alone. But before I do, I'll show you the option you could do with something like that if you didn't want to, if you wanted to put a stud back in this, because it's kind of already done for you. At least one step going bigger. So I'll show you real quick. Again, I used this on a 5.4 I had. This, well, there's the bolt, and it's stainless, so it's holding up really well. You drill your hole out bigger, And this one is purposely flat, so you don't dig too far, but you'd have to figure out your depth. I still have it taped off on here. Then, so you drill your hole bigger, and then you go back through, and this is a little chamfer bit, and that's so, see here, that insert's got a shoulder on it, and that makes room for it to go in there and seat so it's flush. And then when you're done with that part of it, you go back and you tap it for this size, and then this is your installation tool. It threads into this, and then it screws it in just like a screw. And once it gets so far, you can see this little spot on the time cert, or whatever you want to call it. Time cert was the brand, but anyways, it pushes out this tab once you get it set, and that way it can't back out, because it purposely, that tab digs in so it won't walk out. So the advantage this over any kind of Healy coil or anything weird is, you know, you got a nice, I don't know what you want to call it, a nice sleeve. It's thick, and it's meant to handle the torque of, like the factory torque of these studs. So that was what I still could end up doing with those other holes. Those two in the front up here, these ones here that were all blown up, because I got this upper one that needs drilled out or the stud extracted, and then same thing with this one. So if these don't come out and you have to drill them, that's just pretty much what you end up doing. And then this little guide here helps you get your pilot bit centered. It just bolts up to the other flange holes, and then it holds it steady for you. We'll see, but I'll get back to it and check with you in a little bit. All right, we're almost there. This one was an original stud. That's why they probably didn't take it out before, but I did get it loose. Did about 3 heat cycles on it, and then every time it got hot, I squirted a PB blaster and all that stuff. And then, because the first time I left it hot, tried to crack it loose, and I couldn't get this thing to bite on it enough. As in, this thing's kind of nice because it kind of bites on it as much as it needs to. So if it starts slipping, it's telling you that your fastener, you know, is in there good. So then you got to get a wrench on this. In this case, I actually had to use a pipe wrench. That was the only way I can hold it with enough leverage to, you know, tighten this whole setup on, because it clamps as you do that, and then that's what gets the bite on there. And then I just got it, and it's coming off now. The only thing I have left is I got to figure out plan of attack for that. Unfortunately, there's nothing left, and it's flush basically, but usually when you get them like this, you have two things. You could either drill and try those extractors and hopefully it'll break loose, but as tight as these OE ones are, which I assume that's what that is, I don't know if an extractor is going to get it. I might end up having to drill that whole thing out. That's what I'm thinking, but we'll see. I might try and weld a nut to it, but it's kind of in there a little bit. It's hard to get good penetration. Even if you clean it up, sometimes you just don't get enough. But I'll bring you back once I get started. Also, just my quick tip here. I should have shown when I had one in here. Before I even really get started with all this, I try to get all the gasket, you know, material off and around the hole. Get a pick and dig out around the base, because that is a lot of what holds, you know, that bond. And, you know, just whatever you can do to make the process easier, you know. So I believe this helps, because I was digging out around that one a good bit. And yeah, so far every time I've done that, along with doing the heat cycles and stuff, they come out. All right, just because I do have this kit, I just want to show you how to use it. So you're going to get your base plate mounted. So what you do is you you know, pre-install 3 studs if you can. You know, sometimes you can only do 2 because you have other broken ones. And then that way this thing slides onto it and you put your nuts on. You don't have to go crazy tight on them, just kind of snug. Well, right now we're leaving it loose. There's a little wiggle. I'll show you that in a second. So we get it to there, and then this hole here is where we're gonna drill. I have a little alignment pin that I'm gonna put in here, and it perfectly centers this plate over that hole. And then we tighten up our nuts, and then we'll go from there. So let me grab my pin and I'll show you. Okay, so in this kit, they give you 2 pins. They give you one for like a bolt or a stud that's broke, you know, it's not broke off much, it's almost flush. And they have another one here, it's for one that's broken in there a lot deeper. But yeah, so we're gonna be using this one. So this shoulder here, this first one right here, this is what goes into the plate. That keeps this nice and straight. And then the smallest one is the one that goes in the hole. And then that's what centers it all up. So I'm gonna grab my wrench, get it ready. This is what we'll do. Again, I'm trying to do this without losing focus on the camera. Yep. It's about as good as we're gonna get it like that. So. I can take this out now. I'm going to finish snugging up this bolt. We'll put our drill guide on. Oh, this is the wrong one. This one's for the 3-valve adapter. We need 2. 2-valve adapter. And these 2 slide right over those 2, and then we got nuts to secure that. Put that on like that. Now I know not everybody's gonna have this. I bought this before because I did a couple of these, so it was worth it to me. I don't know how much these kits go for now, but I think when I bought it, it was probably $75. Seems like a bit much for a couple of pieces of aluminum, but if you do enough of them or you got enough holes to do it, it helps. Unless you're really good at drilling center with everything, then, you know, don't worry about it. But I bought this for the first one I did, so needless to say, I was a little nervous because, you know, I had to take my whatever truck to work on Monday. You know, I started on the weekend, so I prepared for that. So we got that like that. And also I figured, since I'm pretty sure that's going to be an OEM stud, I want to give it the best chance, you know, for me to get this out. So I'm going to use the drill guide, and then I'll grab a drill bit. You start off with your pilot, and then we'll go from there. All right, I'm going to just bring you back. Here's my setup. Well, obviously, sometimes you get a little lucky. I'm lucky with placement of this hole because I have room to lay this drill down. If it was, you know, back further and I had to do something, I don't know if you'd have to remove the shock tower or not. I've never had to do that, but it just all depends. So, get this back in here. Let's pull this out and check our progress. Bring it back in a sec. All right, I gotta bring you in for this because this is wonderful. So I used that base plate. I drilled a pilot hole with that 1/8 inch bit, and then my plan was to go back through and use this kit, which I'm gonna tell you don't buy. That's my opinion because it did not work at all. The only thing it provided me was a drill bit. So I was going with the drill bit that was just a a little bit smaller than the diameter. That way I cut away most of that stud and not dig it into the threads. And it would make it a lot easier to break that bond because you have less wall of the stud there. So anyways, so I did that. I used this extractor, which is this one, number 2. I don't know if you could see that, but I don't know what these little ribs are supposed to be. I thought they were supposed to be like flutes, you know, sharp edges, but this is smooth. This whole thing's very smooth. So needless to say, after I used the correct drill bit to drill the hole, and then I used the correct extractor, pounded it all the way in, it just spins. It didn't even grab the stud. I was a little upset because I had already drilled out that hole as big as it can go before I start pretty much drilling for a new tapped hole. So what I did is I searched my supply, and I only had this many, and I just happened to have that one extractor. And I will tell you, the one extractor that fits, that's in this hole right now, it's actually broke. There's only about another maybe 3/8, quarter inch of extractor left before it's broke. So I hammered it in there, and I used my stud thing, and then I was just trying to turn it. It was really weird, and then that happened. So it's a stud. That extractor's probably going to fall out of it right now, but it's coming out. So this is great. I can actually almost get that out by hand. Hold on one sec. All right, there it is. Got it out. You can see how close I got to drilling through threads. So yeah, I didn't drill all the way through this one, but I knew I was pretty close. I was probably right at the bottom, but we got it. So that's good news. So that means I got all these out. Now we can just clean up the mating surfaces, and this part will be done. And then I just got to turn to the manifold. All right, so now we can turn our attention to the manifold. So first, I'm going to get this all cleaned up, and then I got to get these studs out. And these don't matter too much to me. If I can't get them out, I'm just going to drill through, and either if the rest of the stud will come out, I will extract it. If not, I'm just going to drill and tap for new studs that I have, and we'll go from there. But I'm just going to clean it up. So I like to use a little Scotch-Brite. All right, that should do it. Okay, here's the update. Got new flange studs in there. So I tried to extract them. It didn't work. So the only thing I did next was took my angle grinder. I cut them flush with this surface. Then I took my good center punch, that one and that one, and I basically drilled them out just like I did the stud on the motor. Drilled it out just about the size of the actual threads. Here's an example. That's part of the stud that came out. And then after that, I followed it up with my tap for these, and then installed them. So now we're ready to put it back on the truck. All right. I went ahead and got this all prepped. Same method I did the manifold, just a little die grinder with Scotch-Brite pad, and just clean it off. You don't want to remove any material on that. That'd be a little bit hard, that'd be bad. And then I'm going to prep my gasket. So I got myself the Felpro 98018. So these will go on like so. Some of these in the past were individual little gaskets for each port, but this one's actually all together. So that could be good, that could be bad. Depends on how close these holes are. And I mean the bolt holes, but they make them bigger so you can kind of wiggle them around a little bit. But the other thing I like to do And I'm gonna do this both sides. I'm gonna put a very thin film on the mating surface here and on the manifold, just for extra insurance. Okay, I think I'm ready. Just like I took it out, flange size goes in first, back behind the Y pipe, the up pipe, I guess you could say. Bring it up like this. It is a hefty piece, though. I think I got it started. Yeah. Okay, so now I can work on getting the other studs in. And now I'm not 100% sure on torque specs. What I've been finding is these studs get torqued. One thing said torque the studs to 25 foot-pounds. Another one said 9 foot-pounds. And then the nuts were torqued to like, I think 17 to 20 foot-pounds on the passenger side. So better to do your research and double check. I'm not sure what I'm going with yet. I think I might go on the lighter side though and go like 10 foot-pounds with this. I don't think these studs need to be in there that tight to begin with. That's my opinion. These studs here, these are like the cheapo ones, so I just put a bunch of anti-seize on my neck. Anyways, so these cheapo ones use a 5mm hex for the stud itself. Good, I got the light because my light died. Okay, so a little bit of time has passed. Didn't feel like showing you me, winding in all the studs, and I ran them in with that little socket wrench, and I got them, I got them torqued down pretty good. I don't know, 10 foot-pounds for the stud. I just snugged up all the nuts, even the bolt. Got this on. So now the only thing I'm left with at this point is just torquing all of the nuts and that bolt for the manifold and this, and then pretty much done, other than having to throw the wheel liner back on and the wheel. But it has been an adventure, and I'm glad it's almost over. So that's how it looks. Everything went in good. So I'm just gonna get everything torqued up and then I'll come back. All right. Now the only noise is the squeaky pulley. Other than that, looks good. Nice and quiet now. All together. Now the only thing we got is a nice sounding exhaust. Sweet. Okay, I'm back in here. I just want to do a review of everything I used in the video. That way you can kind of take away from it, whatever you want. So I'm just going to start with the tools. For the most part, we got this whole bundle here. In some way or fashion, I pretty much used it, except for this. We didn't have to use this, so we'll get that out of there. But I'll still put a link in the description for everything I have. But I used my small torque wrench for the studs, torquing the studs, and then I used a regular size torque wrench for the actual nuts on the manifold. Oop, upside down, I apologize. So I got that Lyle guide for drilling them out. I attempted to use this. I probably won't use it again because it did not work for me, so I would not do that. I got my tap set. That came in handy to fix my manifold for the flange bolts. This is actually probably one of the most important ones. Mine's really old, and the one I used to get it out was actually this one here. It was the broken one. And then this is by far my favorite Probably the best stud extractor I could find. I think this one was $20 when I bought it at the time. This is a few years old, but it is by far my favorite, and it works every time I use it. Then, need some type of drill, preferably like a right angle drill. This one, you wouldn't want anything bigger than that. Let's put it that way. I actually had to cut down one of my drill bits, so it was about that long. But something like that, or I guess bare minimum, you have an attachment, but it's just more to hold. It's kind of annoying. So you can see that would give me a little bit more clearance if I had to use this. And then this is just for tightening both. But I got that. A good nut extractor like this. It's a good tool to have for this job. Heat of some kind, whether it's just a propane torch, MAP gas, and I actually put it away already, but you saw I had my heat induction tool, which is somewhere on the shelf. Yeah, it's right there. But I'll put a link in the description for that as well. And then you got to have some type of light. And after that, I mean, some PB blaster, some kind of penetrant like that. I always have brake cleaner just to clean stuff off before I get, everything installed. And then the other things here, you want to have some type of anti-seize. This is good enough. I had actual copper anti-seize, high heat stuff, and that I used the rest of that. Oh, jeez. And then this is the high heat gasket maker for exhaust. You don't necessarily need it, but like I said, this is stuff that I use, so I'm just going to lay it all out there. Of course, you got parts. That's the driver's side, but hopefully I won't need it because it was already done. And then I will put the part numbers in the description for this stuff. So you'll have your studs and stuff for the flange to your exhaust. That's what those are for. And then these are the actual studs for the manifold gasket. And I don't want to leave out the other two things. I think it helped a lot to jack up the axle and remove, the tire. So jack stands. That's a good way to be safe with that. Also, the other thing I didn't use, but I thought about it, you might need a welder, maybe. And that would be to possibly weld on a nut onto a broken stud and extract it. But I didn't go that route, so, But either way, I'll put a link in the description for some type of welder, something. You wouldn't need anything crazy. But, yeah. So that's going to do it. I showed you all the tools I used, pretty much everything here. And it got the job done. I'm very happy with it. Overall, it wasn't terrible for me, but I've dealt with worse before, so it's hit or miss with those ones. And I actually thought it was going to be pretty bad because it was pretty rusty on that side, to the point where these things were, letting go because the nuts rusted away. So the manifold was actually kind of coming off. But yeah, so that'll wrap it up. So, thanks for tuning in, checking this all out, and stay tuned for more. Hit the like button, subscribe, and, thanks for watching. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.